The piece is called Imperfectly Aligned because it's inspired on the Moiré effect pattern, and it's when you place one pattern on top of one another and move it around, it creates the optical illusion of movement and different patterns, kind of like what you see in here. So I started working with this concept through a workshop that I did, and I presented this workshop at the Museum of Art. And I collaborated with EM Lab to develop the concept of the workshop for the Moiré effect. And then later on I started making some pieces, art pieces with these designs, and it happened that I was with David because he also helps me with his cutters sometimes to cut vinyl designs so I can create stencils for my art pieces. And that's how we started talking about creating this art installation, and he said, oh, you know what, it's super easy, I could help you program it.
So outside, I have an audiovisual installation called Synesthesical. Synesthesiac is the name in English, and it's based on synesthesia, which is a neurological condition where different senses are tied to each other, like you can taste colors, or you can see sounds. In this case, that's the concept that I go with, where audio that you're listening to, whether it's with music or with just people outside, can affect the image, can make it like color or movement or something that can be seen. And it's an ephemeral art piece. It's something that it's only lasts as long as the interaction does. And the concept of that is more about I touch concepts of chaos, where I point a camera and whatever is being captured by the camera goes through the chain of effects, gets reprojected, and then that creates this loop that keeps getting fed through, and you can see the ripples and movement that will create. Even when you create a small movement, you can see sometimes like the ripples that it'll create of kind of chaos and movement. It's amazing, actually. I'm always noticing. I notice like when little kids will be kind of mind blown about it, and I love that. Something really interesting is I notice the things that I find really beautiful are usually when people aren't even noticing that they're being captured by it. Like they're facing away or walking through, and they leave behind like this beautiful artwork that they didn't even notice.
I also tried to make this piece to be educational. So this piece touches the topics of interference. So it's an easy way to explain that aspect, like wave interference. So this is an example of it, like a visual example of that.
This particular scene creates movement creates color where there's movement. So when you're still, there's very little. You see how it responds even when I'm speaking. This particular effect, it speeds up like the way the trails will expand outward. This one on the outdoor wall, I think is a lot more mesmerizing. The colors pop a lot more, but the concept of this one is you can basically paint with movement. So when there's nothing, like on the camera, it's just like blank. So the environment will create the initial image, and then any movement there kind of stays recorded, and then any movement that comes over kind of just erases it and creates another layer. All the facets of the art that I make are kind of part of one thing. When I actually invested in the software and started configuring and the projections, I've always tried to make our live performances immersive. So prior to using projections, I programmed lights to change colors and go with the song, and I programmed what every color or every light will turn into on what sections. And then eventually I kind of upgraded to doing like more interactive visuals to have like a camera on us, and then started processing those images through effects. So to me, they're all kind of part of one thing ultimately that kind of comes together.